Do you feel like everything annoys you? Like the smallest frustration, the slightest remark feels like an attack and makes you want to lash out? Like everybody's trying to tear you down, to prove you wrong, or to make you feel powerless? Or that the world is full of idiots oblivious to what is at stake? So the only way you know how to respond is by getting angry, speaking ferociously, and using intimidation to prove your point. If you feel attacked all the time and feels like anger is your default reaction, there's a reason for that. What if the anger wasn't actually about them? What if it was covering up something much more deeper, a way to distract your attention from truths about yourself that you're not ready to admit, not even to yourself? What if it was telling something about you? In this video, we're diving into anger and rage, not as the emotion or the built-in defense mechanism, but more as the trigger that can reveal more about yourself than you think. So, if you've ever wondered why certain things or situations set you off so much and make you react more strongly than others, stick around. By the end of this video, you'll have a whole new way of looking at your anger and maybe even yourself.
Subscribe to my channel.
Anger is that fiery emotion that kicks in when something feels unfair, when a boundary gets crossed, or when you feel threatened. At its core, it's not just about rage or lashing out. It's a built-in defense mechanism, a signal that something isn't sitting right with you. Originally, anger was there to help us survive, giving us the energy to protect ourselves, stand up for what matters, or change a situation that feels wrong. But anger isn't always about survival or justice. Sometimes it is your ego's way of protecting itself by reacting not to real threat, but when it feels exposed. When the ego senses danger, when it fears being seen for what it truly is, anger becomes its shield, a way to fight back, deflect, and keep the deeper truth hidden. And that's where the real opportunities lie. When anger flares up, it's not just an emotion passing by, it's a doorway, a chance to dig deeper and ask yourself, what is my ego so afraid of? What truth is it trying to bury, both from others and from yourself? Because on the other side of anger, there's something your ego doesn't want you to see. What is the ego hiding exactly? What has been touched inside of you that lit the fire of anger, that surge of anger, that burning need to lash out, to destroy? What is so unbearable, so unacceptable to the ego that it felt the need to cut sharply, quickly, ruthlessly, before something even more painful could surface? The ego feels threatened when it is called out, when there's a risk of uncovering what even it refuses to admit. Whenever its self-image, its identity, or sense of control is being challenged, the ego feels threatened. Feelings of rejection, insignificance, powerlessness, or failure, anything deeply rooted in shame. If admitting something would shatter the way the ego wants to be perceived by itself or by others, it will resist, sometimes aggressively with anger. So while shame is the major factor, the core issue is often the fear of losing a sense of worth, importance, or control. And speaking of control, there's something even much deeper underneath that need to control. If you're interested, stay tuned and subscribe, because that's a topic for another video. So, everything I'm about to reveal to you in this video comes from my own experience, my own digging, my own battle with anger. Through shadow work, I've confronted parts of myself that I did not want to see. Trust me, I really did. So I have faced truth about myself that my ego fought desperately to keep buried. I can't tell you your truth, but I can show you what I have uncovered about mine, and maybe, just maybe, some of it will hit home for you too. Let's jump right in. What is the ego protecting exactly? Why does the ego fight so hard to keep buried? More often than not, the answer is shame. Raw, unbearable shame. It's the feeling of worthlessness, of not having a place in this world. The ego, desperate to prove that its existence is legitimate, fights back. It forces its point of view. It refuses rejection. It demands validation. When anger flares up, it's often because something deep inside feels exposed, something the ego cannot allow to be seen. To cover its wounds, the ego creates masks. One of the most deceptive is perfection, the illusion of strength, competence, and control. Beneath this mask, there is fear of appearing weak, fear of being seen as incompetent, fear of not existing, of being invisible, fear of showing hurt, being vulnerable, because hurt was once used against you. If you've been rejected, humiliated, or made to feel insignificant, your mind finds way to protect you. For some, that means proving they are flawless, because being smart, strong, and competent is what once earned them respect. It is what stopped the abuse. It's what gave them a voice. But it's a lie. The mask doesn't erase the wounds, it only hides them. And every time someone challenges your competence, your intelligence, or your control, the mask cracks. Anger surges, not just as a defense mechanism, but as a desperate attempt to hold the mask together. I was guilty of that when a coworker would come to me and ask me why I did my work the way I did it. I automatically felt challenged, as if he or she was trying to belittle me to show me that I am incompetent, while he or she was just maybe, being curious and wanted to learn something. Or maybe I actually did something wrong and that person was just trying to correct it for me. Or just show me a better way of doing what I did. But instead, I felt threatened. I missed an opportunity to either learn something better or to teach something awesome to someone. But what was really at play in this situation was just my own doubts about my skills. I was suffering from imposter syndrome at the time, so I was afraid to be seen as the fraud I thought I was. I was afraid of being exposed, so I got angry. Simple. Some people wear the mask of the avoider, hiding, minimizing themselves, never taking up space. If rejection taught you that your existence did not matter, anger becomes your last resort scream, a way to force people to hear you, to validate that you are here, that you exist. Feeling unheard, you might shout to be acknowledged. Feeling invisible, you might demand attention. Feeling worthless, you might fight to impose your point of view, just to prove that your presence has meaning. At some point, the pain becomes unbearable and anger erupts, not as a choice, but as an instinct. Me, this is what I was hiding. I needed to be perfect, so I had to be right all the time. Otherwise, I would be nothing. I would go back to be rejected and humiliated, and to me, it meant death. I know that I could rely on my logic to win a battle, but the lack of true knowledge and my low self-esteem made it worse. Every debate became an emotional battlefield for my core wounds. If you're interested in understanding your core wounds at a deeper level, I have linked down below the book Heal Your Wounds and Find Your True Self by Lise Bourbeau. It's one of my go-to books. It is precious.
I also used to yell when I spoke without knowing why. No matter how hard I tried to control my voice, I would always end up shouting. I was the loud woman at the table next to yours until I dug into that underlying anger and uncovered a deep need for recognition, rooted in a past trauma where I experienced both rejection and humiliation.
Some people don't even realizing what they're fighting for. They just know they feel attacked and they react instantly, aggressively, impulsively. But beneath the reaction is a deep confusion. Why do I feel this way? Why does it hurt so much? Maybe you were taught to endure and stay silent, so now you lash out when you've had enough. Maybe you've never learned to name your emotions, so you can't explain your pain. You just know it's there and you react. Maybe you were surrounded by people who could twist words, who could out-argue you, making you feel like you had no right to speak up unless you had the perfect defense. The problem for me here is that I wasn't using anger the right way because I couldn't figure out the emotions I was feeling or what was happening to me. I couldn't describe the situation. I couldn't recognize when I was being disrespected, belittled, or even emotionally abused because I didn't even know these concepts and so little about self-worth because I never knew or integrated that I had worth, a place in this world. So I had to face that deep feeling of worthlessness, that I did not feel like I deserved respect. I didn't have the right to demand respect. It was for others, not me. But I feel hurt. I feel the pain. And then I realized that I was too weak and coward to stand up for myself. So I get even more angry for not standing up for myself. You see? So I react swiftly. I cut. I was in survival mode. So in this case, the ego steps in. Anger becomes your defense, your weapon, your proof that you won't be ignored. Your ego stands up for you. And then there's the final layer. The moment someone suggests that your attitude, your reaction, your rage is just as destructive as the harm that has been done to you. That you are just as cruel as your perpetrators, that you are hurting your loved ones just as freely as they once hurt you. Don't you dare tell me that I am like them. Don't you dare tell me that I'm wrong. I am defending myself. I am bleeding. I am the victim here. But here's the hard truth. Pain doesn't justify destruction. And sometimes the anger we use to fight back is the very thing keeping us trapped in negativity, in holding grudges, keeping these wounds alive. When I realized that I was just as mean and as evil as my perpetrators, it hit me hard. I wasn't the cute little innocent victim I thought I was. I was a ferocious bear. This is when I realized how imperfect I was, holding on to that rage to justify my actions. And so I kept my pain alive without even realizing it. Staying in that space of rage only fuels even more suffering. And this right there is exactly where the key to forgiveness is hiding. But that's for another video. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it if you're interested. So, the ego's greatest fear is to be exposed. Anger is its armor, its weapon, its shield. In reality, you're not just mad at the person, you are mad at what they reveal of you, what they remind you of you, what they forced you to see about yourself, the truth you didn't even want to face, and that you hate about yourself. But there's the thing. Real power and healing comes from admitting it. Admitting that maybe, just maybe, you don't actually have what you're trying so hard to prove about yourself. that the very thing that you are pretending to own is exactly what you fear you lack the most. And deep down, you are angry at yourself for that. And that doesn't mean that it's true that you are powerless, coward, dumb, worthless, whatever that you're feeling. Admitting it means to accept and face that this is how you perceive yourself, how you feel about yourself, not who you truly are. This is what you believe to be true about yourself, what you feel about yourself deep down inside, that you have doubts about who you are and your worth. And these situations, this anger erupts to let you know what is happening deep down inside, to remind you that you have deep pains that need to be addressed. And that's not weakness, it's an opening. If you dare go beyond the rage, if you stop running from it, if you face it, you'll find something much more powerful than anger, your deepest wounds, and within them, the key to you becoming your true self at full potential, freedom. You will free your true self. I had to admit that I was weak, coward, and incompetent. All those things I feared the most. So I could finally give myself the love, the compassion, the comfort that I so desperately needed in the parts where I felt the deepest pain. Only then I could recognize my true potential and work toward becoming my best self. This is your chance to rebuild yourself, to stop relying on masks and instead create real strength, real confidence, a real sense of self. Not the version shaped by wounds, but the version shaped by truth, your truth. Facing these demons isn't easy. It takes courage. It takes raw, unfiltered honesty to yourself. You don't have to show it to the world, but to yourself. And let me tell you something. If you have the strength to lash out in rage, you have the strength to look within and face these demons. And that, more than anything, is what will set you free. Happy healing.